All right, so we know about sessions and cookies. Let's get to some code. You like that? Roll the sleeves up. So the idea here is that I want to be able to create a shopping cart, right? So what you could do with session and cookies is you can obviously create like a user that can log in, which we will do later on this week. And that's going to be more like authentication, authorization. But here, with session cookies, you can just persist data. Something that'd be useful to persist is like a shopping cart. You ever go to like Nike.com or H&M or like, I don't know, where else I shop? Where else do you shop? Amazon, cool. Do you want your shopping cart to persist one extra request, or do you want it to follow you the whole time you're shopping there? It'll follow you, right? So the shopping cart's a very good use of like a session. So what we want to do is we have this index page. We have all of these nachos. I'm taking you to Flavortown today. We have all these nachos. The idea here is that I want to be able to hit this add to cart button and be able to simply add it to my shopping cart. What I want to go over, and this is the most important piece, is simply thinking through how to approach this problem, a feature you've, I'm assuming, never done before, but you have all the tools and all the knowledge already to do it. It's simply how you think about it and then translating that to code. And that's going to be literally every feature ever that you'll ever do. So let's start. When I hit this add to cart button, this is what I would like the user to see. I would like to see on the top something that says, hey, you've added trash can nachos to your cart. And then see trash can nachos here. Does that make sense? So far, so good. All right. That wasn't something you couldn't figure out, right? So let's think through. When I click this button, where should it go? And how can I determine where it goes? Cool, right? Let's think through exactly what's happening. What does this look like to you? A button, right? Which we know the button tag builds what for us? A little sneaky form, right? Let's take a look. Boop, right? We can skip through all this, hit the unordered list inside the thing, and you see right here, just like this sneaky form that the button tag will build for us. So let's take a look at it. It will have an authenticity token, and it will post to something called /index.html. Is that the correct route? No, you already know without knowing anything else that that can't possibly be the correct route. That doesn't make any sense. Where would /index.html really do for us? So the first thing we can determine with our powerful knowledge of Rails is that we need to fix what inside this form. We need to fix what inside this form. The route, right? Cool. Where would I go fix that? In the routes file. Yes, in the routes file. This is such a good class. So let's take a look at the routes file. Now let's think. Cool? Now let's think. This is a team effort. When I hit add to cart, I'm going to hit some sort of custom route. I don't know what it is yet, but let's see if we can figure it out together. When I go add to cart, am I going to be creating a brand new cart or possibly like updating a cart? Think through every single time I hit add to cart, what should it do? It should update the cart, right? So in terms of like updating, what HTTP verb do you think that will be? That's right, batch. Right? Shut up. Cool. I had a student in a previous class, whenever I sneezed during lecture, she said, shut up. And I thought it was the funniest thing. So, God bless you, all right? But now you know. It's just stupid. I'll stop doing it. This class doesn't like it. So I want to patch, right? I want to patch to where? Now let's think through. Add to cart. If you were to patch to a route, what would you call that route? What would you want to call a patch to, I don't know, something about a cart? What would you call that? Like my cart, right? Or like patch to / cart, right? That's what you'd want to call this custom route, right? I mean, unless someone else has a different idea or something very similar. Cool, let's go with that. A patch to cart. Cool, nothing crazy. Sweet. And then where does this go, right? This is the tricky part. Where does this patch to / cart go? Let's think through. I can only assume some sort of nachos controller, and I have an application controller. Do I want my update to cart to go to my nachos controller or to my application controller or to a brand new controller I haven't made yet? Right, you say cart controller? Right, who thinks that that's a good idea? That I should make a new controller called cart? One person. All right, for those that did not vote, where would you want to go? Why application controller? Hmm?
Because you're going to want access to the cart from multiple controller actions. So if everything gets inherited from the application controller, all the controllers have access to it.
That's a very good point, right? What he said was, if you point it to the application controller, then everyone will have access to this method, right? Let's think through that a little bit carefully, because the idea here is that makes sense, that I want everything to understand what's happening inside my cart. Like, let's just say eventually I create a hamburgers controller, and I make a bunch of hamburgers. I make a hot dogs controller, and I make a bunch of hot dogs. I want to be able to add a hot dog, a nacho, and a hamburger to my cart eventually, right? But let's think through and just figure out, what will this cart controller do if we do the cart controller? Or what would the application controller do if we do the application controller? What method would you want to create on this patch request? On the patch request, what method do you normally create? Update, right? So let's think through. I have some controller, I don't know yet, hitting a method called update. Now, do I want every single controller to inherit the update method? No, I don't want every single controller to inherit the update method from the application controller, because it could overwrite the update method that I create in that controller, in the nachos controller. Does anyone follow me? Just a quick thumbs up, nice and high, if that made sense to you. Great. So I would probably want to put this in a different controller, because as we know, application, everything inherits from it. So let's try the cart controller. Smart. The carts controller, right? How do I create a new controller? Do I do RailsG resources here? No. I would just simply want to create the controller. So let's do that. Let's just say I did that, right? I did in here, blah, 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 RailsG carts controller. Cool? And what will that build for me? The carts controller, right? Take a look. Cool. Ready? I should probably rename this. I'll just rename it to carts controller. Oops, I didn't save. Embarrassing. Boop. And then I'll just update this. Cool. And I have a method called update, which makes sense. Cool. All I'm going to do is hit this by bug. Oop. How do I hit the carts controller with a method of update? How do I hit this carts controller with a method of update? What do I need to do? I have to hit some sort of patch to slash cart. And what needs to hit patch to slash cart? The form. Cool. In my index, let me just scroll over here. Come on. Oh, there it is. Bloop. Cool. Where do I change it? What do I change? Cool. Inside my button too, I'll just put slash cart. But what will this hit as it stands right now? It hit a post, right? So I need to overwrite that, and I can simply go, hey, method. I think I could just send it like this. All right? Let's find out. Yep, and there it is, a patch to slash cart. So if I hit this button, will I hit the buy button? Yeah. Yeah. Yeet. What do I need inside here? What would make sense to have inside here? Well, let's check those params. Cool. I have a method patch, my auth token, a controller carts, and a method called update. I don't really have anything useful in here, but what would be useful? I have session in here, and I'm about to show you, but what data would be useful? Right, like literally this information right here. Right? This information would be useful. Like if I had trash can nachos, maybe even the ID of this nacho would be useful. Right? Isn't that kind of what you're looking for inside your params? So let's take a look. We have flash, which is just a tiny little flash hash that persists data for one extra request. Well, let's take a look at session. And this is where I'm going to zoom it down. Cool. Let's take a look. Ready? A little busy. A little bit. I mean, not too much. There's a lot of data in here. A lot of data in here, right? So yes, the session already exists in here because who builds the session? The browser or Rails? Rails builds the session. So Rails builds the session, and like I said, session can be used just as a key value pair for any old key value. So what I'm looking for here in my params is like this nacho name and this nacho ID. Let's take a look at what we can do here. I'm just gonna show you something. This might be the first time you see this. This would be like the only real piece of code that's kind of new. And that is I can tell it exactly what to send on my params. How do you think I could do that? Something like params. Pointing to a hash. So like an object, right? What do you want to send over? What key do you want to send over? You want to send something like the nacho ID? And do we have access to the nacho ID here? Yeah, we do, because we are still inside of this iterator. So I'm going to be calling on this nacho right here as the value, which would be nacho.id. I also want to send over the nacho name. And do I have access to the nacho name? Cool. Let's take a look at the schema just to see what it's called. And it's called name. Sweet. So smart. And it's just going to be nacho.name. Is there any questions as to what this params might be doing and how I created these key value pairs? Yeah.
I have a separate question.
Sure.
Does it have to go in that order? You have to do method first and then params?
No, you can put it in any order you want. Okay. They're symbols, so Rails will figure it out. That's a good question. The question is, do I have to put method before params? Can I put params and then method? You can put any order you want. Awesome. So let's take a look. I'm going to just continue, and I'm simply going to refresh and then send over this again. Go back into my bybug and check my params. And there they are, Nacho ID and Nacho name. So far, so good. Cool, 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 cool. What can I do with this information inside my controller? What can I do? Well, the idea here is that I would like to be able to, right? Let's think back on those deliverables. I'd like to be able to see some sort of notification here that says, hey, you added trash can nachos to your cart. Cool? Let's think. I'm in here. Do I want at message to equal to like, hey, you've added the trash can nachos to your cart. Smiley face. And then I will, does this have a view page, or should I send them back to that index? I'm going to send them back to the index. And I'm simply going to tell you what's going on, because I can tell that your mind's preoccupied with the mod2 project. So I'm just going to talk you through this. Cool? I'm going to hold your hand like a kid in a candy store. Let's go. I'm going to redirect them to the nachos index. And that way they can kind of see this. Then they'll have access to something called @message, right? Only they won't, because HTTP requests are stateless. So the problem with this is, in the redirect, I'll get a new GET request and it will get lost. So I should probably change this to flash at a key of message, or notice, or hey, something happened, right? Anything I want. So I'm just going to put notice for funsies. I'm going to go back to my index.html, and I'm simply going to check to see flash at a key of notice. If flash at a key of notice, boop, boop, then I'm just going to render it. Cool. This is just a string. It should just populate here. So let's see if that worked. Let's get rid of the bybug, and let's refresh. Cool. And if I add mac and cheese nachos, oops, I'm still in the bybug. Embarrassing. Ooh. Ooh. Cool. Even though I click this, it says you've added trash can nachos to your cart. Is that right? No. So I can probably get rid of this hard coding, which is very useful as a debugging tool, and simply interpolate what's going on. And that will be the params at a key of nacho name. So let's figure this out. Boom, I added dessert nachos. Boom, I added deep fried nachos to my cart, right? It's working. The problem is I'm not actually adding anything to the cart. So the first deliverable is done, right? I wanted to see the fact that I'm adding something, and then on refresh, it goes away because of flash. Are there any questions? Nice, nice. Just, that's it? Cool? Let's keep going. What else do I need to do here? Right, we need to add it to the cart, right? So, as we've talked about, there's this idea that we need to create a cart. So we can have a session at a key of cart. Remember, session is just like a normal key value pair that we can use, and it's going to hold what in it? It's going to hold what? An array? An array of what? Nacho objects. So what do I want to put in here now? Hashes? Yeah, I could do that. How would you do it? Cool. Does anyone want to walk me through it?
The key would be not show ID, and then it would point to a value of another hash.
Okay.
And then you could say the key is quantity, and the value is some integer. And then if something was already in it, you would have to increment it by one.
Cool. So your idea is that we would have an array of nested objects that can point to a Nacho ID that points to a quantity, which is another hash, right? Here, what I want to point out is that there are a lot of different ways to do this, and it's hard to flesh out what's going on all the way because you're not sure how to implement it, and that's okay. The idea here is you just need practice breaking down these large problems into smaller problems. And so one of the things we can do is simply say session at a key of cart will simply be the params at a key of Nacho ID. Right? So here session at a key of cart is equal to params and Nacho ID. So what is session at a key of cart? It's just params at a key of Nacho ID. So it'll be a number. What we can do is inside the index, right, as it comes back here, we can simply render session at a key of cart. Because just like Flash, session will also be available in the view. So let's refresh, and I see 1, 2. Because I added earlier trash can nachos and mac and cheese nachos. I can also add the deep fried nachos, and now it's just 3. Danger dogs, and now it's just 4. So the problem is it's just being overwritten. I'm not actually pushing to and adding to an array. Does that make sense? So can I do this? Can I just push it? The problem with pushing to something is the first time it exists, can you push something into nil? So for example, let's bring the bybug back. Take this code out. And if I hit this, I'm going to hit the bybug. And let's just take a look at session. At a key of, I don't know, dolphin. It's nil. Can I push something into nil? No, it's weird, right? I have to create this array first. So for some reason, I need to be able to do something like this, and then session at a key of cart push. How does session exist? It's a very good question. Every single request, Rails will create a session for you. If it exists, it will utilize that same session. So without a login or anything, so session just belongs to whoever's on the page? Session doesn't belong to anyone. Session is a key value store that gets put inside the cookie that gets passed between every single request in the same way that the Flash hash does. So this session, like this card is just everyone's card on the website? Oh, I'm sorry. The session is domain specific. So, for example, like right now I have 4 in here, right? I can literally open a brand new incognito mode, go to localhost 3000/nachos, and I will see a different session for this experience. So every single time the browser is open on a different user, on a different computer, the session will be different. Notice how, huh? Okay. We're just creating a cart. Yeah, I'm creating this cart key in this particular session in this instance of the app. Notice how this is frozen. Why is this frozen? It's because I'm stuck in the bybug, right? The thing can only process 1 request at a time. So, yeah. Can it use the same port twice? Okay, say again? Can it use the same port 3000 twice? Because like you're also using localhost 3000 on the Yeah. Yes. So if I were to just continue the bybug, that will free up the server, and it will actually, in fact, process. So like I can do this. I got it. I'm in the bybug again. Oh, embarrassing. Cool. And I've added trash can nachos over here. And they're different. So the problem with this, right, is that every time it hits this update, what happens to my session? It gets reset back to empty array. And then I push this nacho in there. The problem is like, I don't want to reset it. I just want to be able to have it there and then push it if it already exists. If it doesn't exist, then create the array and push it. Does that make sense? So we've talked about the idea of this update inside the carts controller. Now let's think. The cart itself, who should have access to it regarding the controller? Should it be just the carts controller, or should it be every single controller? It should be all the controllers. So what we can do is we can move the cart logic up to the application controller. Remember, the update is simply going to update the cart, but the cart itself should exist everywhere. So a little bit of a difference. So in the application controller, I want to do a couple of things there. I want to be able to have a cart. I want to be able to add a nacho to it. And then I want to be able to get the items from the cart. Because right now, what data structure are we pushing into this cart? An integer. We're pushing an integer inside this array. Is it good to have just the integer for the view? Like, for example, when I'm here, is this useful information for the user? No, you actually want the nacho name. With just the integer, is there a way that we could grab the object and then display the name? Right, so let's walk through that whole process. So I have a cart here, and we just talked about the fact that it makes sense to move the logic of the cart into the application controller. So let's do that. Session at a key of cart goes here. And then the adding the nacho to the cart. Here's where I'm going to start explaining best practices. Before we had what? Params at a key of nacho ID, something like that. The idea here is that the single responsibility principle is that all your methods, they only do one thing. It makes your code so much easier and cleaner and reusable and readable. So the cart. The idea here is, if this cart exists, can I call that method right here? Yeah, I can. So if I call this cart, what should it return me? An empty array. The problem that we just talked about is that it shouldn't. It should return the array if it already exists. So we could do something like this. Right? We can do if session at a key of cart, right, is equal to nil, then session at a key of cart is equal to empty array. Oops. Oops. Else session at a key of, whoa, there's too many S's there. Else return session at a key of cart. Does that make sense? Like, if it doesn't exist, make it an array. But if it does exist, just give me back the array that's already there. This can be refactored. Right? Who likes being upset? I haven't said that in a while. So this line right here says or equals. And all it means is that session at a key of cart is equal to an empty array if it doesn't already exist. Are there any questions on this refactor or why I created the cart method. Cool. Great. So now this cart would either be an empty array or an array that already exists. And what I want to do is I want to pass in the nacho ID that comes in through the params. The problem is, do I have access to the params inside the application controller? Not really, right? Do I have access to add nacho to cart inside the carts controller? Yes, because of inheritance. So I can, in theory, call add nacho to cart and pass in the nacho ID params here, which means that I probably need to change the way my method is written. And it's going to receive a nacho ID. And then now I'm just going to be pushing in nacho ID. So I'm going to call the method and pass in the actual params. I'm passing in the params, and all it's going to do is it's going to push into my cart. The last thing we talked about was the fact that I don't have access to the instance because these are just integers. So what I want to do is I want to be able to get all of the instances with all of my nacho IDs. Let's take a look, and let's simply catch this by bug one more time. If I hit add to cart, and I'm in the by bug, let's take a look at this, right? Can I do nacho.find with 1? What will I get? I'll get the first nacho with the nacho of ID of 1. If I do nacho.find, and I take an array, and I go 1, 2, what should I get? I should get 2 nachos. Right? It's nacho ID 1 and nacho ID 2. So it looks like this find method can accept an array. And we actually have, as luck would have it, an array. I can do nacho.find, bloop, and pass it in an array. So smart. But what I really need is I need access to them inside a view. So how can I create something that gives me access to it inside the view? I can make an instance variable. So I have access to get items to cart. And as we know, everything inherits from almighty application controller. If I go back to my nachos controller and I do something like get items from cart and I invoke this method, do I have access to cart items inside my index? Yes. Exactly. Yes, mysterious stranger. So in my index, I can say add cart items. And then, oops, it's embarrassing. Dot each. That doesn't look right. Because freaking logo like a Ruby, you know what I'm saying? And then I can just render in the li tag, boop, boop, the cart item. Because what is cart item here? If I'm doing this, they are instances of the nacho. So for each of the instances in the nacho, I should call its name. Oh man, I gotta get rid of that by bug. Where's that thing? Bloop, 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 bloop. Ooh, interesting. Cool. Let's take a look. What is this error? Undefined method each for a nacho.
It's because you only have one item right now, so it's not like iterable. It's not enumerable.
Yeah.
Do dot each on one nacho.
Cool. How can we fix that?
Force it to be an array. I think.
Hmm?
Can we do that
To array? We can. But let's take a look real quick. Yeah? Let's get rid of all this. And let's simply figure out what is at cart item. Cool. 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 That was not useful, right? Because it looked like a ruby. And then what do we get? Nothing. Why? It's because these objects, right? They don't actually appear on the screen. So what you can do, check it real quick. You guys like that? You don't like that? Just throw a bybug right inside the view. Dirty. So dirty. So if I refresh, look at that. Inside the view, Rails is magic. Cool? Let's take a look at what is at cart item, in case you don't know what it is. Is anyone like mind blown or impressed by this? Nobody. All right. I was mind blown and impressed by it. That's probably right. There it is. It's one item. Cool. So how can we fix this? We're very close. We're V close.
Can you do capital and notch or that find and put in an array of 1, comma 2? Can we see what that returns?
What do you want me to do?
Can you do capital and notch or that find and then pass in an array of 1, comma 2?
Like this?
Yeah, so we have to force it to be an array.
Yes? No? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can do that too.
So the problem is something, right? The idea here is that if I were to find with an array, it should come back as an array. This shouldn't be a problem. So let's figure out what happened here. Ooh. Yeah? Let's see if this is actually passing in as we think it should be. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. And all I'm going to do is simply add to my cart. Oh, get out of here. Danger dogs. And I should be inside here. So what is cart? 44. Why is it 44? Let's follow the logic, right? Where is the idea here is that when I hit that, it hits the cart's controller and it runs this method. Cool? Yes? So let's step back into time and check it one more time. This is powerful debugging. Oh yeah, that's right. I messed up. There's no Nacho 44. How did that happen? All right, let's get rid of this real quick. Cool. Boom. Throw that back. Okay. 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 So let's hit that buy bug. Boop. Cool. What do we got here? What is cart? 44. Why is cart 44? But why?
When you're shoveling, it's probably just shoveling in the 4, and it added to the previous 4. So
It should be
right now
calling
it's
this method. That's painful. It never did that. I need to clear my cookies. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. Bloop. Gone. I don't even know no old James. Alrighty. Let's try again. Bloop. What is cart? There it is. It's overriding it. I hard-coded 44 in there. Shame. What's this? Right. Why? Let's take a look at the view. I'm just rendering session at a key of cart. Right? We don't want to do that. We want to use the at cart items dot each do the cart item, and then let's get rid of this thinking face and just simply render the cart item inside li tags. Look up, 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 look up. Why did it come up with nothing again? Because this is just the object. That should work. Oh, embarrassing. Cool. There it is. So if I wanted to, I can add dessert nachos. I gotta get rid of this buy bug. Bloop. Right? I can add some deluxe nachos, some mac and cheese nachos, and then on refresh, it's still there. And you'll see in the application controller under cookies, right? If I delete this cookie and I refresh, my cart's gone because everything lived inside the session, which is passed back and forth inside the cookie. Yeah?
Can you re-explain the difference, or why you have cards controller and application controller that has cart methods?
The idea here is that the logic for what happens inside the cart, goes inside the cart controller. We've decided that we wanted this update method. We didn't want to put this update method inside the application controller because every single controller will inherit this update method, which can be somewhat confusing because you'll probably wind up writing an update method inside your controllers. So the logic for the cart controller should go, the logic for the cart should go inside the cart controller. But the fact is, all of your controllers need access to the cart. They will all need to be able to add to the cart. So anytime you have a form, it should hit the cart's controller update, which then calls on all of these methods. And you want all of your controllers to be able to like add to a nacho if you want. I add like item to cart. I just put nacho in here because we're only dealing with nachos right now. So like where you want it and what should have access should just always be kept in mind. Cool? I mean, there's other ways to do it, but that's just the idea. The idea here, I'm just wanted to take you through a large problem that had a lot of different ways to solve it and to talk out and ask, how do I do something? And then go through step by step how to do it. None of this really, aside from maybe adding the params inside the button 2, should have been brand new. So the idea is that you should be able to, with step by step and breaking down the process, figure out how to do new features. And if you're stuck, you can simply Google it. How do I add params on a button 2? Because that's what you want to come across, and I'm sure it'll come up. Cool. Anything else? Awesome, that's all I have for you today.